everyone, it's Terrence Branley with the Grow IT podcast, and today I am grateful to have Earl Foote, who is the CEO of Nexus IT and one of the cybersecurity experts, one of the nation's top managed security service providers, which we're going to talk all about today. But Earl, welcome.
Thank you, Terrence. Appreciate the invite to come on the show. This should be fun.
Yeah, it will. So let's talk a little bit about your background. Obviously, Nexus IT has been around since 1998 or so. We were talking about even the history of back in Salt Lake 20 plus years ago, but tell us a little bit about your background prior to and throughout, Nexus IT.
Yeah, for sure. So I was, when I started Nexus IT, I was 23 years old. I've been doing this now 26 years of my life, so more than half of my life. I was working full time during the day, going to school full time at night, trying to get my degree. Had started a family and was starting a business at the same time. And I think it was sheer stupidity. I had more energy than I knew what to do with, I guess, and I could get by with 3 or 4 hours of sleep back then. But my brother and I had this harebrained idea. It started actually in e-commerce. IT and network gear, computer gear, e-commerce website. That didn't do, all that well, excuse me, but it led to a lot of friends and family starting to reach out to us and asking us to consult with them for, designing networks and then managing networks for their businesses. So this is the late 90s. Managed IT wasn't really a thing back there and back then. So we kind of made this pivot from e-commerce into contract IT services, where we would essentially lease talent for X amount of hours per day or week that would be on site and fulfill the IT needs of a business, their support needs and stuff like that. We mid 2000s, 2004, 2005, as the technology, the RMM and the bandwidth started to catch up with the ability to be able to deliver more remote managed services, we started pivoting, more into that. It's been a long journey over 26 years, and we've done a lot, in that time period. 2012, we still had a number of e-commerce properties over those first 14 years. We had probably 7 or 8 e-commerce properties at that point that were, they were generating revenue. They weren't generating a lot of profit. In 2012, my brother and I decided to split the business in half and go our separate ways. I'd always wanted to build a really high growth business, and he wanted a simple lifestyle business. So we just had two different visions, and we had a very amicable, split down the middle of the business and the client book and the assets. And I took over sole ownership of Nexus IT at that point, and divested all of our e-commerce properties because they weren't really that profitable, and just focused in on our core of managed IT and managed security. And so over the past 12 years, with our team, have kind of rebuilt, and I scaled the business way back. I got rid of kind of all of our as needed, clients, the ad hoc, sort of clients, and then went full contract, clients pretty much exclusively. So I scaled the business way back, and then have scaled it back to about 500,000 that first year in revenue. And, over the past 12 years with an awesome team, we've rebuilt into the 8 figures, bootstrapping along the way. And we've done now, Terrence, actually 7 in-house M&A transactions. So we've acquired 7 of our colleagues' businesses. Some of those are still with us, them or their people are still with us. Of course, the majority of their clients are still with us, which is a big part of the intent of acquisition. Acquisition for us is about acqui-hire, too. It's about getting good talent and good people to come join to build. Our mission is to elevate IT. Our vision is to be a top 10 MSP in the U.S. And so, we're always looking for good muscle, to come and build with us. So we that's kind of been our trajectory here. Today, right now, we are the largest locally owned and the fastest growing owned MSP in Utah. We are the 28th fastest growing company in Utah right now, the 56th fastest growing MSP in the nation out of the 100,000 or so that are out there. We're the official cyber partner to the Utah Jazz. So we've come a long ways over the last 12 years of kind of rebuilding our brand and rebuilding the organization. We're having a lot of fun. We're winning at a lot of things. But I also have this kind of this philosophy, and maybe it happens because I have this philosophy, but it's basically if you're kicking ass, you're getting your ass kicked, So it's like you don't go in the boxing ring and knock somebody out without taking a couple of good punches, and if you're going to stretch and grow, like a high growth business is no joke, and you're constantly stretching yourself and your team outside of your comfort zone, and you're constantly kind of being exposed to or sometimes getting blindsided by things that you didn't know were there, right? And so we're still very much a growing entity. I call it a 26-year-old scrappy startup, and still feel that way because we're constantly learning and growing. The market changes, the employees change, the needs of our clients change. And I know we'll probably talk a little bit more about, kind of where the industry's going, but yeah, we're constantly learning, and that's, one of our core values is a growth mindset. So, we look for a team, we build a team that really loves to learn and grow and loves to be curious and loves to, not shy away from the challenges, not see them as disempowering, but instead going, hey, this is a new opportunity for us to figure out something and to become better, so that's kind of the way we look at, our growth and our innovation. Anyways, that's kind of where we're at, Terrence.
That gives us a lot to go from. So I'm going to come back to a lot of it. Let's stay right now with what are some of the problems that you're helping your clients solve? What are some of their, what are they, when they're coming to you, whether it's prospects or clients, existing clients, to say, hey, Earl, here's what we're trying to do. Here's what our challenges are. Could be related to growth, could be retraction, could be growth through acquisition, kind of what you're doing. But like, what are some of the things they're coming to you and saying, hey, help us fix this, help us get to where we're trying to go?
Yeah, very good. So I think to preface, I will mention we predominantly work in regulated space. The majority of our clients are in healthcare and finance, and then other regulated spaces. So we've developed a lot of knowledge, expertise, capabilities in cyber and in compliance. And excuse me, I don't know why I get a frog in my throat when it's time to get on the microphone, right? But our client sizes vary quite a bit. We have some really great like hedge funds or PE or VC offices that are 10 or 12 people, and then we have actually some global brands, in our portfolio of clients, or some national brands, that have several thousand employees, and their needs can kind of be different, and diverse, but really what it comes down to, and you mentioned, some are scaling back on, internal teams, and some are wanting to grow their capabilities. But what it comes down to is that they have gaps, in the way they manage their IT, the way they manage their cyber and their compliance, and they're looking for expertise. They're looking for turnkey solutions, and that's really, where I think we excel. 26 years of building a tech and a cyber stack that, we have all the automation and workflows and dashboard and ticketing and all that stuff built through the entire stacks, right? And they tie together, but we can also piece them out a la carte. And so we can offer, custom solutions to businesses that, that have gaps that they need to figure out. We do a lot of fully managed IT and cyber, and we do a lot of co-managed, or we augment internal teams. So in those kind of lower mid-market companies that are our clients, a lot of them have a CIO or a CTO or VP of IT or something like that, maybe even the CFO that technology rolls up to, and they have internal teams oftentimes, but they don't have all the expertise, or sometimes it's just easier to have turnkey processes, and they don't want to have to go out and buy all the licensing and deploy out all the software and then have to go build all the stuff that we built, over 26 years. So it's easy for us to just kind of bolt in and say, yeah, what do you need, right? You need, you need some email security, you need MDR, XDR, you need endpoint security, you need encryption, Microsoft 365, you need support for all of that, and we can just kind of a la carte pick out what their specific needs are. And that's, for us, we take a very handcrafted sort of solutions approach, in our process of bringing on new clients. We built a reputation in our market of being the trusted advisor in technology and in cyber, and that's really the approach we take throughout a sales process. Is it's really just about assessing the client's needs, their objectives, and then designing solutions. So we have solutions architects, who will take all of that information, and then with reps, with account executives, they'll build a plan for the client, and then present that plan to them. So it's a myriad. It's all over the board, Terrence, but it just comes down to they have gaps in what they're doing, and they need to fill those gaps. Sometimes it's talent, sometimes it's process, sometimes it's tools, right? It's software that they need that they don't have.
People, processes, and tools, right?
Yeah.
It usually comes to those three. Let's talk about some success stories, and it can be, you can, put them in terms of healthcare. I think you said insurance, or maybe even like fintech.
Finance, yeah. We have some fintech clients, yeah.
Let's talk about the success stories, related to them. And everyone, views success in different light or whatnot, right? Because some can be contracting, where you may be helping them. Some may be growing them fast and looking to kind of plug into your resources. But maybe kind of walk us through some success stories you've got.
Yeah, certainly. I think there's a good case study that I want to highlight. But just to reiterate what you said, really since the start of COVID, we've seen a lot of organizations retract on their IT and cyber teams and practices, and they're looking for outsourced providers, right? So that's super common, whether they've laid off the entire team or they've simply, laid off some of the resources, but they need to backfill, and they want to do it on a contract basis, on an outsourced basis, rather than having W-2 employees with fully loaded, burden and all that kind of stuff. Or there are those organizations that are still getting capital, and Utah is definitely a tech hub right now. We're rated, sometimes number one, number two in the nation in terms of, tech startup ecosystem. And so there's a lot of venture-backed SaaS here. And of course, we had a dry spell there for a couple of years of like nobody investing anything, 18 months or, nearly 24. But this year, quite a bit of capital has been flowing back into the market. And so you've got a lot of high growth sort of tech companies that, they're hiring 10 to 40 or 50 employees a month, and they need somebody who can really manage that process for them of start of employment, provisioning devices, provisioning user accounts, and all of the, the software and the printers that they need, and their VPN, and, all that kind of stuff, right? So we've kind of got those couple of different scenarios. Maybe I can't use names, of course. We all of our clients are under NDA. We do that to protect them, and to protect ourselves. Earlier this year, we landed actually the largest client, the largest contract in our history as an organization. That entity is part of a global entity, or was part of a global entity, I should say. They were bought by a massive global PE firm, and that PE firm decided to disconnect and spin out this entity out of the larger global entity. And we had just barely signed contracts, and we had just barely, like literally 3 or 4 days before, started their onboarding process. And the large global entity had a massive hack. It was all over the news globally. And these guys were still connected. And so they got on the phone with us and they said, we need you to extricate this business out of this business as fast as you possibly can. And we were talking about this was already a project we were going to do to disconnect these two, organizations from a technology perspective. And it was like a 3-month project, right? Well, we extricated them in 48 hours with only two devices in this network that got encrypted with the ransomware, right? So we minimized the impact, significantly. And the team went to work and did a fantastic job. We had to spin up new domain, controllers. We had to create new domains. We had to disjoin from domains and rejoin, and set up new user profiles. You know the whole drill, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it was, and we're talking 450 employees or so that we extricated, in 48 hours. So it was it was a wild ride, and a lot of team members working overnight, to get it done. But man, it just says a lot about our team, and the capabilities and how they show up, with heart and the care. Yeah.
That's crazy. I thought you were going to say 4 to 8 weeks, and I think I actually know who you're referring to, which we're going to leave nameless. But yeah, that's incredible, right? And to be able to, I'm sure, get kind of all hands on deck for the largest client signing that you've had, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden they run into emergency one with priority one.
Yep. Yeah.
That's incredible.
I tell you, we won them over, and we won over the PE firm. We're talking with them about doing other projects and other clients right now because, yeah, we definitely proved our mettle in that.
Oh,
In
for
that scenario.
sure,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So let's talk trends, right? Like, what are the trends you're seeing? I mean, obviously, AI, large learning models come into play. What are some of the trends in in IT that you're seeing? And it doesn't necessarily have to be relegated to AI and LLM. It just seems to be what everyone wants to talk about. But at the same time, we know that there's a lot of stuff going out. There always is, right, in technology. What are some of the things that you're hearing and talking about with
Actually,
clients?
yeah, I think I want to take a little bit of a different vein. Like, I mean, we talk about AI a lot, and and I think it's a lot of fun. A lot of it's speculative, and I think we don't 100% understand or know the full impact of AI yet. You and I know, MSPs, we've been battling weaponized AI for 12 or 15 years, and we use benevolent AI to battle it, right? We use that to detect, neutralize, and then bring front of glass, for cyber analysts, when there's a threat. So, we've seen it. It's not new for us. I think really, for us, especially where we're at in regulated space, Terrence, um, I think the biggest drivers we're seeing are in compliance and in cyber and upstream vendor, management, data governance. We're seeing a lot of, bigger organizations, of course, that are, it's now obligatory for them to have annual audits on their data governance practices, on their infrastructure, so they're trying to get SOC 2 certified or, GDPR or whatever, FINRA, SEC. Like, I mean, I can go and name, and you got to, build around the NIST framework or CIS 18 or, and so we're seeing bigger organizations that are, starting to contract, so say mid-market organizations or smaller organizations, but they're saying you have to have all these data security practices in place, or you can't, we're not going to sign this contract for you, right? So we definitely see upstream vendor management, being a massive driver right now in mid-market and SMBs, getting far more serious about creating compliance and cyber programs. Beyond that, cyber insurance is a massive driver as well. When cyber insurance came out, I remember like when we got our first policy, it was a one-page document and it cost us $1,200 a year, right? Today, it's a 50-page document. You have to get a third-party assessment and pen test. You got to have third-party attestation. That the data governance, that you're attesting to in that 50-page application, that you're actually adhering to all that, right? And a policy is 50 grand a year or something now, right? Depending on the size of the business and the risk and exposure. So we're definitely seeing a lot of organizations, deciding to level up their cyber and compliance practices because of their upstream insurance, carrier that is requiring them to maintain, their coverage, right? They're requiring them to get real about these practices, right? And yeah, I mean, you and I both know, like, just the threat landscape. Hackers are getting more and more astute all the time, and of course they're developing their tool set, to be more capable all the time, and bringing AI into that tool set, it starts to become a massive advantage on their side, where they're using bots. It doesn't have to be a human behind a keyboard, and now smart bots that can actually evolve and figure out how to penetrate a network infrastructure, or how to re-engineer a social engineering campaign or something like that to try to get people to click on it, right? So I think those are kind of the biggest drivers we're really seeing. AI still, there's just a lot of speculation there, right? And I know it's starting to take hold in certain places. We use it a lot. We use it for shortcutting our work all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's generative AI or other types of AI tools. Anyways, hopefully that's helpful.
No, it is, and I agree with you. And part of it is like a lot of this when we're talking about AI and LM is kind of speculation, right? Where it's going to go. It is interesting just to see, especially in the cybersec space, because one thing criminals are good; they're always on the cutting edge, and the bad guys are always trying to use these things to their advantage. Before, I think you used a word, you can put up the benevolent shield, so to speak,
Yeah.
in place, and it's a little bit probably scary in terms of how fast and how exponentially changing it is. And being in your space where that's your market, it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And it's fun to see and watch firsthand, right? Like, I try not to over dramatize, but we tell people we do real world cyber warfare for corporations, for businesses all day, every day. That's what we do, right? Granted, we have the whole stack of IT, services and solutions, but that's in my opinion, generalist MSPs are going to start to have a hard time finding traction in the market. You can solve some problems, but really because of where cyber and compliance is going, if you don't develop really good capabilities there and have good services and product sets available, I think you're going to start to see some of those MSPs that will struggle to continue to grow. Just as we saw, the naysayers around cloud, right? You know, what are we talking about here? 2009,
Mm-hmm.
2010, that time period, you had a lot of MSPs out there like, oh, that cloud thing, that's never going to, catch on. And we're on-prem, only on-prem, right? And a lot of those, they either fizzled or they've really never been able to grow and become something really significant, right? So in my opinion, MSPs should be paying very close attention to the cyber and compliance landscapes, and they should be figuring out how they solve those problems for their clients, because if you don't, the client has to go somewhere else for the solution, and you're allowing an incumbent into the relationship who can very likely unseat you, especially if they're solving bigger, better problems for your client. They build more trust, and some of that easier, generalist kind of stuff, it's pretty easy to say, hey, we can capture that to you, for you too, and then that client trusts you because you've got the heavy lift, right? You're taking care of
Mm-hmm.
cyber and compliance, which are very complicated, things problems to solve for them, right?
Do you see that? I'm going to use this kind of a bridge over to the next topic, which is growth, and you've gone the route of in terms of buy or build of the buy and M&A. I guess let me go back to the MSPs. Do you see that as something that's going to be disruptive in the MSP market, which is, and I think before we started, you talked about, or maybe even today on the pod that, there's over 100,000, MSPs in the country. And a lot of them are probably like small, 1 to 5 employees type of thing. Do you see a shift in that happening because of what's going on in cybersec, that it will become less of a, for lack of better words, mom and pop type of business or SMB small business, to where you're going to see aggregation at a more regional and national level?
We've seen massive amounts of aggregation. Yeah. Yes. And it is very much a part of, um, technology buyers are becoming more sophisticated, and they need more sophisticated providers who can really solve holistic problems for them, right? If really all you can solve is, hey, we're going to give you an Active Directory server, with some backup. We'll take care of your desktops, your laptops, your wireless network, and we're going to support all that for you, right? That's just scratching the surface, today, right? And that doesn't really wow, anybody. And so, that is, we're seeing massive amounts. I think it's, we're going on 150 or 200 PE-owned MSP platforms in the nation now, with massive consolidation in the space. And yeah, I believe that's going to continue to be a significant driver. I know right now, especially when there's a lot of compression happening in the market. You know, high net worth funds, family offices, and individuals, you know, they want steady Eddie, you know, they want nice, you know, good cash flowing businesses that are strong and have a compelling future. And nobody sees technology, you know, the need to consult and outsource technology, and certainly not to take care of cyber and compliance. Nobody sees that going away, you know, in decades and decades and decades, not even with AI. You know, AI is going to help empower us and help, you know, help us do some things bigger, better, faster. But, you know, taking away the human element from that isn't going to be a reality. So yeah, you've got a lot of, you know, you got, you know, $1 billion funds out there, $10 billion funds that are going, we really want to be in the managed, you know, managed service, managed security space. And we feel like we can build a platform that can solve a greater piece of the pie for, you know, this client market. And we feel we can use that to move upstream in the market, which is, we've just been doing it on our own. You know, we're learning from what's happening in this, you know, in space. And, you know, we've figured out how to, you know, build these capabilities. We figured out how to solve the problems for our clients, and then we figured out how to do M&A, which is not easy, right?
No, it isn't. That actually was going to be my next question, and that's what you know, when you look to grow a business. I mentioned kind of buy or build, right? You can, you know, build it, and there's advantages, disadvantages to both, and it isn't always just, you know, buying is going to shortcut, right? Yes, you can then, you know, tack on revenue, resources, people, but it's not like putting Legos together, right?
Yeah.
There's challenges associated with, and I kind of want to get your you know, feedback on that. You've done it, I think you said 7 or 8 times. You know, give us a little bit of both sides, right? Because I always like to preface to people that just, it's not like going to the grocery store and buying, you know, cash flow off the you know, shelf, and there are challenges associated with it. But maybe you can kind of talk a little bit through it.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And, you know, for clarity, by the way, Terrence, we still very much build and we buy, right? So just, you know, to illustrate, we're growing right now organically at about 45% per year. You know, the national average in MSP space is about 10% per year. So we're 4.5xing the national average in CAGR, in growth rate per year. When we add on the M&A practice, we're growing at 93.3% per year right now. So we're investing into organic growth, and we're investing into M&A. You know, we know how to build branding, marketing, and sales engines, and we know how to create that sort of organic growth rate. And it's part of the value prop we bring to our colleagues when we say, hey, we know you're hitting a ceiling on $5 million a year. We know, like, that's a really hard one to get through. We've been there. We know how to get through it. You know, if you want to come join us, you know, we can teach you how to operationally refine your business. We can teach you how to operate it better. We can teach you how to scale and grow that business, right? And we can help dedicate those resources to make this happen for you. So, you know, the gotchas in M&A, you know, really the biggest gotcha, Terrence, is misalignment in mission, vision, culture, and leadership philosophical fit. You know, the other considerations, of course, financially it has to make sense. Strategically, it has to make sense. You know, from legal and compliance and cyber, you know, due diligence, and the tech stacks and the client book and the employees you're acquiring and all that kind of stuff, that all has to make sense. But where stuff really comes off the rails, especially in a high touch people business that's relationship based and your product is people, right? If you can't mesh two teams together to work together, you know, in a very cohesive way, you're going to create some massive problems. And we've done some right and we've done some wrong. And we've taken some lickings. And I'll tell you, every single M&A transaction teaches you lessons, right? Every single M&A transaction is going to give you challenges. So, you know, if you can go into it with that mindset of, you know, we're going to learn some lessons. We're going to take a few lumps in this, but we're going to figure out how to solve those, you know, those challenges we run into. We're going to get past them, and we're going to be bigger, better, stronger because of them, right? So, yeah, when it comes down to it, and you know, Terrence, you've been in this space long enough. Engineers are very territorial. Engineers are very finicky. You know, very finicky with the people they interact with their supervisor or their employer, with the clients.
They're a little bit like rock stars, you know, like you know.
Yeah, we're
use your guitars in the background. You know, that's.
And I include myself in that because I'm an engineer. I you know, by schooling, civil engineer, but pivoted into, into technology, right? Uh, and there's typically we're often very inflexible as people, right? We don't like change much. We certainly don't like change in our reporting relationships and the team around us. Not all at once, right? So you really got to, and that's where we start our M&A process, is just strictly around, what is your culture like? What is ours like? What are our worldviews? How do we view leading people and building a business as leaders, right? And are there congruencies, or are we too far off? Because if we're too far off, we'll just say, hey, look, we think you're building a fantastic business. We don't think it's going to work to bring these two businesses together, right? And we wish you the absolute best. And we don't even start getting into financial due diligence and all that other stuff, the legal and
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
What are some of the questions? I'm fascinated by this. This is so important. What are some of the questions? So if someone said to you, "Hey, Earl, you're going into a potential acquisition target, or someone that's considering selling, and you can only ask 5 questions. What questions would they be, and who would you ask them of? Right? Because that's, I think, is equally important."
Yeah, well, we of course start our conversations with the MSP owner or owners, and we don't normally talk to their teams until we're very deep into the process where it looks like things are going to, be real. But that being said, and just to preface as well, I do have a secret weapon on our side. So our chief people officer, his name is Jeb Hurley. Jeb, he's had several SVP or general manager positions in Fortune 500 companies. Most recently was GM of Asia South Pacific for HP, where they sponsored his doctorate in organizational psychology. And so Jeb's a neuroscientist. He can read people like nobody's business. So we start those conversations with Jeb and I so that we get a good sense of, and I can read people fairly well, right? The questions, we start with the DNA of the individual themselves, because that DNA of that individual is the culture of that organization, right? Culture is leadership behavior at scale throughout an organization. And so we start with, what are the real world core values of that person? What drives them? What gives them passion? Where do they find purpose and meaning, right, in life, and in the business, how they build it? What's important to them about the way they build their business, right? What are the things that they try to do in the way they show up as a leader to develop themselves? What do they do intentionally to build culture in an organization? We start with all those types of questions, right? Because it tells us a lot about that person, and it tells us if we're close enough, in our worldview and the way we view business, the way we view people leadership, all that kind of stuff. If we're close enough, then we feel like we can probably do business together. If it's too far apart, then we don't. And that doesn't mean, like, I'm a firm believer, Terrence, that diverse voices at the table create a better organization. So we're firm believers that our leadership teams, that we have critical conversations. We disagree, and we put stuff on the table and we talk about it, pretty passionately, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're like, no, that's not what my side of the beach ball looks like. It looks like this, and your side looks like this. And so, but the question really comes down to is, can you get through disagreements and decide, okay, this is the common ground, this is what we're going to build together, and then get unified in the same mission, vision, and with the same core values that you're behaving with, right? If that's the case, because disagreements are going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can all step back away from those disagreements and go, we're still building something super cool, right? And yeah, we figured out how to take all of our good perspectives and we figured out how to make something, really cool out of those good perspectives. Let's go to work and let's build, right? If you got those kind of people, then awesome. If you got the kind of people that just want to fight, and then they have emotional trauma problems, and they can't re-engage in a constructive manner, then you're going to have problems, right? So those are the things we look for, and you can get that, like you kind of pretty quickly pick up within people whether they default to a victim mindset or they default to an empowering mindset, right? And if they default to a victim mindset, you're going to have problems with them. So we just step away from it, right? If they like to be somebody's victim all the time, you know, sooner or later they're going to feel like they're your victim, right? Because they're going to come in and have a boss. That's me, right? They're going to have to report to somebody new, and I drive performance. I drive growth. We are a high performing MSP. There's a reason why we're growing at nearly 100% per year, and there's a reason why we have significant clout in the marketplace, because we deliver for our clients. Like, we answer, you know, we respond to 98% of our tickets within a half hour. We resolve 98% within 2.5 hours. We have 98% client CSAT, 98% retention rate of our clients, and 63.3 on our NPS score, which anything over 50 is world class. So we deliver for our clients, but it requires that we hold a very high bar around here of standard of performance, you know, and so if you got kind of lackadaisical, you know, MSPs that aren't really that interested in being a high performing organization, it's just going to be an uphill battle. So, you know, but if they've got the heart of like a warrior and we want to go to work, we got good work ethic, and we're glad to have some structure and have accountability and have stewardship and to really take care of what's in our purview. Those are the type of people that we look for, right?
We're very similar, and I think they're, in talking to a lot of people, and you do too, in our industry, and successful leaders, and seeing ones that maybe aren't as successful, and I think the ones that you know can embrace it. And it doesn't make your way to do things or my way to do things right or wrong or someone else's, right? But the common thread that the high growth, companies embrace who they are, right? And are very upfront about it and are unabashed about it. And, and I like to say to people is like, hey, if people don't work out in our organization, it's okay. There's a place for them. Like, there absolutely is. It's just not, within our organization, because we have one mission, and that is to drive growth both for ourselves and for our clients. And we will do it relentlessly. We will do it passionately. And again, it's not for everybody. And we acknowledge that, right? And I think that helps in going into those type of situations in terms of whether it's an acquisition, target for M&A, or even, potential client, or as we do, employees, right?
Yeah. The way that I talk about it, Terrence, around here is, first off, we're building a world-class championship type of organization. We're building something elite, and that requires an elite team, right? So the way we talk about it is, if you want to be part of an elite organization, an elite team, our expectation is you show up with elite mindset, elite behavior, and elite performance, right? And if you're cool with that, then awesome, you're in, right? If you want to really have your clients back and have your teams back and build something special and different, then we want you on board with this, right? Whether that's through acquisition or through an organic hire. But if that scares you, then we aren't the right place for you, right? If you want kind of simple, steady Eddie, you don't really want to stretch yourself and grow at a quick pace, we're not the type of organization for you, right? And that's okay. Like you said, there is a seat for every cheek, right? there's a place for everybody out there, and for them to do good work and be happy. It's just our environment probably isn't the right environment for them. And that, all that being said, Terrence, we're an empathetic, kind, people first organization. We love our people to death, right? They're fantastic. They're awesome people. And they show up with heart and soul, and they care about the way they show up for our clients and for each other. But they also expect each other to show up, right? And we expect that of them as well.
It's a reciprocal relationship. I agree with it. And I want to make sure that we touch on that part too, right? Because, the type of people we have in our organization that are, I like to call A players, top performers, the elite. I'm going to probably use that in my next, interview, are ones that want to be around other elite people too, right? And, and as we know in the people business, we're only as successful as the people we have around us. It is important to attract the right people, but also to retain them, right? So to your point, right, which is, we're going to do whatever we can to retain, those A players, those performance people, those elite players in our businesses.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Winning mindsets want to be around other winning mindsets, right? They want to have that support, and they want to know their colleagues have their back. So that's the job of managers around here, is to make sure that there's a level playing field that everybody's pulling their weight, and if they're not, then, we sit down and have conversations about, hey, this is the standard of expectation around here. This is what your team is doing, right? We need you to step up, and we try to work through people, with people to coach them up. Some people, we aren't the right place for, and we eventually decide to part ways, right? But yeah.
Yep. I could talk about this. We'll schedule a whole nother podcast for this one.
Yeah.
But can you walk us through, Earl, what it looks like a path with one of your new clients looks like? And I know every situation is different, every client's different. Even though you may focus in specific industries, but kind of walk us through that path that a new client takes with your firm.
Yeah, very good. So at our size and scale, we have very intentionally designed the customer journey, right? So we have full process and then sub processes, of all of that. It starts with, that lead opportunity, that comes in, however it might come in. It might be from an account exec outreach. It might be, inbound organic. It might be an event, it might be social media, whatever it is, right? Whatever channel that comes through, an account exec is assigned to them. And that account exec will generally do a couple of meetings with them with a solutions architect. And again, we'll take a very needs-based approach, needs and objectives-based approach to designing the solutions that organization needs. And so they walk through, the sales process. Once we ink a contract, then the account executive turns that over to our onboarding team, and they're part of that whole kickoff process. And the onboarding team then takes the client through a very methodical process of, gathering all of the data we need about that client, all their infrastructure data, credentials, and then, all the user information. And then the onboarding team does the full deployment and implementation of all of our tools into that environment, all the training, of their staff, teaching their staff how to get support, through all of our channels. So, chat and email and, our chatbots on the website and chatbots through our RMM, and then of course phone, support and all that kind of stuff. And that usually, depending on the size of the organization and the level to which they help, in the process, it's a 4 to 6 week process, during which they're getting support from our frontline, services teams, our frontline support teams. But then onboarding will officially turn the client over to what we call FLS, which is frontline services or frontline support, along with a technical account manager, a client success manager, or an account manager rather than the technical account manager, depending on the demographic of the client. And so then we have, that client now is in, full support, working with our service desk, escalations, knock SOC, projects where necessary. They get a pod of all these engineers, right? With also a technical account manager and a client success manager. The client success manager orchestrates, all the services across all of the, the organization, those different teams. And the technical account manager really acts kind of as that fractional CIO or fractional IT manager, for the client. So they're helping true up their technology, programs to their 3 or 5 year business plan, make sure that we're empowering and enabling that and making everything scalable for them based upon how they want to grow. And then that technical account manager is also doing all the gap assessment, right? They're looking at where are you at today in your technology. Okay, so, you're a physicians group that owns 15 different clinics and you're not HIPAA compliant right now. And that's going to be a big problem, right? So we're going to do an assessment. We're going to figure out where you're at today. We're going to create a full roadmap, and that roadmap might be 2 years long, depending upon the rate at which the company wants to implement and get there. We try to shoot for less, 12 months or less, but a roadmap of getting them to where they need to be with real compliance and cyber practices, and that of course includes additional solutions, additional MRR that's tacked onto a contract, right? Over time. Now, some of that gets sold up front, depending on the willingness of the client. We do a lot of land and expand. So, a client, may say, hey, well, this is our budget today. These are the the most important things that we need to solve for today. So we might start with a lesser agreement, land into the account, and then over time, through technical account management and the client success manager, cross-sell and upsell. But we cross-sell and upsell to bring that client into best practices and into compliance with regulations, right? It's not about shoving product and services down their throat. It's about, being their trusted advisor and consulting with, that leadership team on, here are your risks, here's your gaps, these are real world things, right? And collaborating. How do you want to solve it, and at what pace do you want to solve it, right? And then we just chip away at those things, and we get them into really good shape to where they're operating way better from a technology perspective. The operations become far more turnkey and standardized, right? That makes it a lot easier to be able to support them, and they become less noisy over time, right? So that's kind of that. At a 30,000 foot view, that's the client journey, right? Yeah.
That's a pretty good one. It's pretty extensive. Well, I've there's probably 5 other topics that I would love to dive into with you, but I think we're gonna have to save it for a second one. But this has been fascinating. I've enjoyed this one. What's a good way for people to follow you, learn more about Nexus IT, reach out, see if we can, get on the path to working with you guys?
Yeah, for sure. So for me personally, I'm most active on LinkedIn and on Instagram. You can follow me at Earl Foote or Bass Slapping CEO. I do play bass in a tech exec rock and roll band. So Bass Slapping CEO. For Nexus, look us up on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram, or our website. Website is nexusitc.net.
We'll make sure and put those links there. And that was one of the things we're going to have to talk about that on the next one.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
But I've really enjoyed the conversation today, and we'll look forward to
likewise, Terrence. I appreciate the invitation. It's been fun.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks again, Earl.